understand why all the kids are playing this game these days. It's because they like to build brown bricks with Minecraft. I also like to build brown bricks with Minecraft. It's the most fun you can possibly have. What is the point of Minecraft? Well, there really is no point. It's a sandbox game.
You know, I'd say that romantic comedies occupy a weird niche in the entertainment world. It's the only genre I can think of where the show can be so many hours long, and be made with the intention that the audience will already have a pretty good guess as to what the ending will be before walking in. At least in horror movies, they'll pretend that it isn't going to end with one survivor, and the evil still being out there. But the second I turn on a show like Run On, I'm already watching gorgeous Korean supermodels make googly eyes at one another. I recognize that audiences sometimes want something somewhat lighthearted, where they know they'll only ever be moderately challenged at most. But I do wonder how the creators feel, knowing that a lot of their works are essentially just cotton candy machines, except meant to swirl around and collect a series of stereotypes and cliches. It just so happens that one of those people who only wants to be moderately challenged is me, so I was mildly intrigued by the way in which the show flirts with the idea of tackling pretty big social issues. Issues surrounding corrupt hierarchies, the importance of self-care, the gays. But most of the social commentary is front-loaded into the first half or so of the series, or at least is more conspicuous in the first half. And conspicuous is the right word when half of the commentary is presented by characters practically looking to the camera and saying, "Hey, are you paying attention? This is a big problem in Korea right now."
벌어진 일이잖아요. 조직을 남성 중심으로만 꾸려서 여성 지도자 임용을 늘려야 해요.
진짜 정말.
Run On is about a down-on-her-luck translator, Oh Mi-ju, falling in love with star athlete Kim-seon, who's in hot water with his controlling rich family. This story then intersects with the story of the growing relationship between Seo Dan-ah, a bossy controlling businesswoman, and Lee Yeong-Hwa, an artist and the best character. Both of these romances have to do with a rich person getting together with a poorer person. The rich one is more standoffish and aloof, whereas the poor filth are emotional and passionate as such bottom feeders tend to be. You'll notice a lot of patterns like this. The entire show is built around mirrors and foils. The two couples find themselves having similar dynamics in terms of social status, but the difference in environment our two rich protagonists find themselves in is used to draw out different nuances about the way in which wealth and hierarchy have affected their lives. Take a look at this scene in the first episode. Sun Kim is at dinner with his fellow athletes, and Mi-ju is at dinner with her boss and co-workers. Two different dinners, two different stories about hierarchy. The dynamic of having two similar but slightly different couples is all very well and good, and it makes for some interesting YouTube videos. But on the other hand, it does make it feel like the show repeats a lot of the same notes, especially when the social commentary aspect begins to feel less prevalent. How many copy-pasted scenes of rich people being passive-aggressive do I really need? Do we really need this much drama about sibling characters that barely get any screen time?
I can't understand you. Go back to your country.
Oh my gosh, 안녕하세요, 오빠. 사랑해요.
If you pay attention to the directing, you'll notice that there's not really a lot of camera movement. Most of the editing just involves the video cutting. This lack of dynamism is complemented by the bright, oftentimes soft-feeling color choices and the soothing piano music of the soundtrack. Also, you'll notice that a lot of the characters are usually filmed from a profile angle, which I suspect is to make them look more attractive, so you get that eye candy too. It helps in the sense that the directing never feels too close or claustrophobic, but it hurts in the sense that sometimes the tension doesn't feel like it builds in exactly the way that it should, because it never holds a shot long enough for a real emotional gut punch to resonate. However, I can't applaud that for the most part it feels like it has one tone and sticks to it. If I didn't expect a lack of creativity could also be the culprit for the lack of bold edits. If you take the first episode and look at the number of match cuts, and the dynamism of the camera, the second episode instantly feels less ambitious, and the unique directing choices only decrease in number from there. I can't say for certain, but the fact that some of the later episodes feel kind of phoned in could have to do with the fact that the show was put on hold for a while due to COVID, so it's hard to say how much that impacted production. Another thing that Corona might have had a hand in is the amount of filler in the show. They had this one arc where Mi-ju and Sun Kim are helping out on a movie set, but this entire arc only really has 2 plot important bits, which isn't a lot considering that it's multiple episodes long. There's also this one episode that has this bit where Miju is imagining all the characters in an in-universe movie, and it has no discernible plot relevance, and the bit keeps recurring throughout the entire course of a 1-hour episode. On an unrelated note,
Oh, my beautiful 여자친구.
they reveal that one character, Yejun, is gay, but his mom is homophobic and doesn't support him. Not that it matters. He's not really fleshed out a whole lot to begin with. He just kind of shows up places drunk sometimes, which in TV land usually means life problems. But we are talking about a show where 3 characters are drunkards. Honestly though, people might say that Yejun is good gay representation, but more importantly, he's representing us ugly guys out there. I enjoyed his mom too. She's probably the most believable antagonist. She's implied to be a relatively kind-hearted person, but she's just pretty religious. So she finds out her son is gay and she's just kind of like, Jesus wouldn't like this very much, now would he? Kind of a shame she didn't have more screen time. She definitely stands out among the other more lackluster antagonists.
엄마,
하지마.
나 남자 좋아해.
It feels weird for a show that wants so desperately to comment on social issues that so many of the bad guys boil down to evil guy who wants control. I also enjoyed Sun Kyum's dad, who's the closest thing that the show has to a main antagonist. But the reason why he's so entertaining is also the reason why he doesn't fit with the show very well. He's kinda cartoony, he's sanctimonious, self-righteous, comically evil, and selfish. He's one-dimensional. He's interesting to watch and has some pretty funny scenes, but he definitely feels out of place in a show which sometimes feels like it's meant to be making serious social commentary. He also stands out against the protagonists who have nuance, usually. Miju's arc essentially revolves around learning responsibility, going from living like the average K-drama fan to eating healthy, exercising, and getting better at asserting herself more consistently. At the beginning of the show, she's characterized very explicitly as a loser. She grew up tight on money, so she got used to having to lick the boots for superiors. The anger from this built up and occasionally resulted in bursts of angry indignation. But at the end of the day, the need for money and the love of her job was enough to bring her crawling back each time. So one would think the end of her arc would be her overcoming the obstacles in her way, but the problem is that it doesn't really feel like she overcame a whole lot in the end. They were building up to her gathering the courage to confess to Sun Kyum, but he confesses to her first, meaning that she never overcame anything to enter into that relationship. Also, they made it out to be a problem that she has to suck corporate cock to get anywhere, but the ending didn't really address that problem either, so what gives? She gets invited to a festival thing, but she's implied to have gone to film festivals in the past, so it's not really that big of a deal. Donna's arc also kinda gives me weird vibes. You see, at first whenever she showed up, she always has this girl boss music. She was always having these back and forths with different characters, running her own business, and browsing female dating strategy. But then, they start hinting, maybe she's not actually as secure deep down as she lets on. Maybe she actually is lonely and is looking to be with people. But she falls in love with Yeong-Hwa, because of his painting or something, and they get close. For reasons I'm not really sure of, because they have no chemistry at all. To the point where when they broke up, my response was just like, oh yeah, I guess they were dating. Then, they get back together for reasons I'm also not too clear on.
Psst. Secretly, I do know why they broke up. It's because breaking up in the second act is the only way romance writers know how to build tension.
But her breakup with Yeong-Hwa changed her. She started being kind of nice to people sometimes. And that's it. That's all of her character development. That's all you're gonna get out of her, folks. It seems like she just keeps chugging on with her work. Which kind of raises the question of why they had this whole arc where her work life seems to be unhealthy to begin with. If she's just gonna be Sigma male grind setting it up by the time of the final credit roll. Which might have you thinking that part of the point is life just keeps chugging on as before, and that Miju and Dana just keep living a daily life similar to the ones that they had at the beginning of the show, struggles and all. But if that's the point, it didn't really come across. Also, they had this thing where Dana comes out to her family
I'm a brony.
as a lesbian, and they're all like,
It's fucking gay!
but obviously something is up because she gets together with a scrote in the end. They build up this mystery around why she said she was a lesbian. That's brought to a close in a monologue that lasts a good 30 or second or so, where she basically just says, I made it up, lol. Also, she has the most realistic depiction of a first relationship in any show. And that's because she gets together with a guy, they promise to be together forever, and then break up a few days later. 10 out of 10. Son Kyum goes from being the most interesting character to the least interesting character throughout the show. He starts as someone who's diligent but constantly frustrated, and not really that in touch with his emotions. You see, his family is rich. They're classy. They're in the spotlight. And their need to secure their influence leads them to strictly coordinating Son Kyum's life. So he rejects the control of his family by just kind of fucking around and seeing what happens. The sense of helplessness he feels by being trapped by his parents also probably influences his desire to stand up against the corruption in the sporting world that he's a part of. After all, he doesn't really have anything to lose, and it's not like he would even know people's boundaries if he gave a shit, because he's mega autistic, doesn't like to be touched, can't read social cues, blind to faces. Dude probably watches my videos too. I will say that one benefit of having a character like this is that it doesn't feel unnatural when he just starts monologuing his character development to you. You're just like, yup, that seems like a way that a strange guy like this would express himself. The same cannot be said for the other characters. Also, they're setting up this arc where Son Kyum is upset that people think he's boring, and they show a couple of scenes of him and Miju having awkward silent moments together. But not really anything has changed in that department by the end. And make no mistake, by the end of the show, Son Kyum is boring. In the beginning he was kind of unpredictable, but I think the point was that his emotional needs get fulfilled, and he learns to take care of himself emotionally, he calms down. So by the end he's just generic nice guy plus mild Asperger's spectrum. So he's not really that entertaining by that point. Also, you know how I said that Donna was miserable with her job? Which is as an agent. And a lot of the show has to do with the conflict between Son Kyum and the corrupt sports world. Well, it ends with him becoming a sports agent, which strikes me as kind of a strange way to draw things to a close. For Yeong-Hwa, he has this thing where Donna is all like, ooh, I'm gonna find what's in your heart, babe. Because Yeong-Hwa seems like a happy guy, but all his paintings are mad edgy or something. So they keep hinting that he has some sort of secret troubles, or something else in his past. And just like with Donna, they never actually bring that to a close. There's this bit at the end where Donna looks into the camera and proclaims, I have done it. I have found your heart. Now I'm not going to tell you what it's like, but rest assured I did in fact find it. The guy who I really wanted to know more about was this assistant guy though. What happened in his life to make him become the biggest dick sucker on the planet? He has these moments where you'll see him just barely holding back on saying some shit that he clearly wants to say. And they have this scene where he's in this bar, and it seems like he's opening up just a little bit. And then they never flesh out his character ever again, unless you count this one rather shoehorned scene where he gets together with one of the side characters, Mei. All these characters are well acted for the most part, although I thought Kang Tae-oh, who plays Yeong-Hwa, was kind of hamming it up in some scenes. Yim-Si didn't really need to display that wide of a range of emotions as Son Kyum, but in spite of that fact, he actually came across as really impressive in his acting. The way he's able to bring across subtle things in his facial expressions, just small reactions to people talking, even though his character isn't really supposed to be an emotional guy, is decently impressive. And then also these scenes where he cries and breaks down are pretty good too. Now let's talk about the comedy. Are you sitting down right now? Doesn't matter, because I'm going to show you anyway.
A woman says that a man cannot even stand up. An argument then ensues about the treatment of women in the workplace. A woman says, "This is insulting." The man says, "You insulted me first. You said I couldn't get it up." A long-winded montage then ensues of him riding around and shouting.
And it's grade A cringe. A lot of the throwaway jokes I actually found to be decently funny, though obviously that's subjective. But sometimes they have full-on bits, and that falls pretty flat usually. While I'm at it, the ending also fell pretty flat. The entire thing had me feeling like I flipped over 2 pages at once or something. When the second to last episode rolled around, I had noticed that they had introduced what must have been at least 4 different subplots, and I was thinking, they can't possibly bring all of these to a satisfying conclusion. To their credit, they did bring them to a conclusion, but they do it by giving each subplot about 2 minutes each. They were hyping up this big conflict between Son Kyum and his dad, and then they just kind of have this segment where his assistant comes out, and he just goes, yeah, he just kind of quit. His mom, who's fighting with his dad the entire show, just goes, oh yeah, I can get divorced. I'll just divorce my abusive husband. They don't get divorced, they kind of reconcile at the very end because he brings her flowers or something, but they were teasing that they might get divorced. And you get like a good maybe 1 minute for that. It shows her reconciling with her daughter really quickly too. They show Son Kyum making up with his dad for no discernible reason. Yejun spends time with his mom. Does this mean that his mom accepts the fact that he's gay now? I don't know, they don't say. In conclusion, Run On is a pretty decent time killer. I wouldn't exactly praise it to the moon and back, and I don't think I'll be able to remember much about it in 5 years, but I don't regret watching it. The characters are three-dimensional enough to be interesting to watch, even if the plot they're involved in is pretty unremarkable in a lot of regards. If you're on the fence about whether or not you want to watch it, I recommend watching the first episode, because it's all downhill from there in my opinion. I'll see you guys later.
자, 드디어 개봉합니다. 기대해 주세요. 하나, 둘, 셋. 짜잔.
you